Welcome. Looking here at the Gnosticism reflected in Mary's song, the Magnificat. Wisdom, which is a great part of the tradition in Christian and Hebrew writing, is another word for Gnosticism. The deep understanding of knowledge that comes not from the accumulation of facts, whether they're useful, interesting or helpful or not. But Gnosis is a more direct path to grace. It is the mysterious internal transformation, releasing the mind's construction of self-identity. The self-identity that is so flimsy that it gives rise to continual anxieties for the future or the past, and the great underlying fear of not being good enough. Gnosis is a name for the transcendence of that false self, and therefore the full knowledge of God. Helping the mind to allow heart wisdom requires some esoteric practice, which sounds complicated, but it's not. Regular quiet prayer and times of stillness and thorough inward reflection. In biblical terms, it's the courage for wilderness wandering and for listening quietly like Mary and Bethany to Jesus' teaching. Gnosis emerges when the little me is quietened, and then eventually the transcendent glory appears, radiant like the sun through dissipating heavy cloud. Jesus teaches this way through example and in many parables, encouraging people to lose their little life to find life, to find being alive, without anxious mental buzzing. John the Baptist tells people to let go and turn round, turn to God, to return to the God who is. Mary is evidently not a little me person. She does not set out to teach, as far as we know. But the Magnificat, sung every evening or said every evening in religious houses, is the product of Gnosis, and we're going to look at that together. It may be helpful to look at a Greek literal translation from the Greek to sort of literal English, and you'll see there that the Magnificat as we have it is not exactly the same and doesn't capture all the nuances. Whether or not you look at the text, in the song, truth, real truth, is felt like rain on parched earth. The compelling call of this hugely attractive way of living, fully cognizant of God. For the devoted, the absolute experience of the divine can become the lived way of being, opening to a relationship with God. God is experienced in this much deeper fullness, no longer as an object, and so the fullness of grace is revealed. The self, as we normally think about it, all but disappears in the knowledge or gnosis of God. Isaiah likens this to being dressed in flowers and jewels, wrapped in a cloak of rightness where all is well and clothed in freedom. And he goes on to point out, in case the image encourages grandiose ambition, that this is not about self-aggrandizing, but about being natural, like a seed that grows in the ground. Transcendent glory is felt, is known, but is hard to describe. It is a full present experience. Mary has earlier heard the angel tell her she's full of grace and highly favoured. And this is true of you too. You also are full of grace. But in the little me way, this is not the experience. It may be thought or projected, but when coming from the mind, these ideas lack reality. They lack experience. They produce anxiety. They're not Gnostic or wisdom produced. Notice that Mary's earlier response to the angelic appearance is not concern for the little me, but rather about how this will unfold. She may have been considering whether this is to happen after her relationship with Joseph is consummated. But for our purposes, here's what's significant is that there is no me thinking here. It's obvious straight away that she is living in a deep and different way. She hears or understands God's will, and she aligns with it. The little me is not apparent at all. She is clearly transcendent. She's achieved Gnosis. She is what people might call enlightened, fully present. Achieving Gnosis requires esoteric practice, mystical reflection, and coming to know one's true nature, from which wisdom flows. In the biblical material, this is achieved often in the wilderness. But unlike Abram, Joseph, Jeremiah, Isaiah, John the Baptist, and Jesus, Mary did not spend time in the desert or in prison. She had a very different wilderness, equally difficult, but probably much more like yours, where time alone must often be found in the midst of other people. It's the wilderness of ordinary days, punctuated by people and events which demand attention, action, and where staying in prayer can be at first quite hard to achieve. Reflecting on God in the ordinary events, renouncing darker impulses of the mind's machinations, and so coming to understand the deep, true nature, untainted by the mind's projections. All of this going on amidst a good deal of background noise. To enter into this more fully is to be reckless in the normal way of things, to say yes, to jump in to God's will, rather than building absolutely useless dams or ponds, or seeing the world through a distorting, contained lens. The myriad ways people find of turning from ultimate truth. The wilderness of ordinary life is untamed and sparse, inhabited by the faithful when they long for the living water and the direct understanding of God's love. Mary's song is the song of an unadorned heart, and the wisdom is revealed to allow it to resonate with your heart, not your ideas, but simply the heart. It's a process like seeing someone laughing with complete abandon and sincerity and a sort of heartiness. It makes us laugh too. We do not need to know the ultimate cause of the other's laughter. We don't need to examine it or judge it, but just the proximal cause, the experience welling up from the resonating of the heart. The Magnificat is a response of wild elation, of rejoicing, and expresses the wisdom hidden in plain sight deep in the heart, always present, but rarely revealed. It's made more immediate by the eroding of the false self, the highs, the filling in of false chasms, false ideas of exaltedness that hinder Gnosis, the Gnosis of God's love. So Mary's song sings into the wilderness experience of people through the ages. My soul, she says, or sings, not myself, but my soul magnifies the Lord, and the spirit that gives life to me rejoices in God's truth. It offers freedom from slavery or salvation, freedom from the cognitive constraints that shrink-wrap life for a supermarket shelf. She sings, God looks with favour on all, but it is only discernible to the open heart when the ego is stilled and the mystery embraced. So here too, that God sees you entirely favourably with love, even though this true naked you-ness is not impressive in the usual way of speaking. The same is exactly true of Mary, not impressive or special except in this Gnosis, the wisdom heart, where the person is full of grace. She goes on, surely from now on and eternally I am blessed. God's mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. God's mercy is eternal, present, and across all God's works. She sings about a levelling of all that is, the truth of being a creature. The proud are immune to the presence and cannot achieve wisdom, but the humble are more open to feel the eternal, omnipresent truth. In a rough translation from the Greek, we get God through scatters those who over-appear. And this through scattering is through mind of heart them. So those who proffer something more than they are, full of themselves, ideas rather than reality, or we could say living out of the false self, are scattered through the mind of the heart. The delusional and practitioners of delusion are scattered through their mind, and it's an unappealing fact. The song continues, God has brought down the potentates from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. Again, those who set themselves up in their mind's eye as more than and lift themselves up in their thoughts relative to others will be brought down by Gnosis. They have to let go of all of that. And potentates, it's worth noting, come in all walks of life, not just people with literal thrones or famous people. She sings on, those who hunger for God will find God present, filled with this good food, filled with grace. While those who are chock full of their truth go away empty. No wisdom or deep understanding is possible to the person who presents a full and defended false self-identity. The song continues, God's help is present to those who revere God. This promise of mercy is available to the people who seek after God. The love of God does not disappear for the careless, the self-absorbed. It's mercifully across all God's works. The garden is held in God's mercy. Animals are held in God's mercy. Insects, the stars, you and your natural beingness, all is held in the mercy of God. So Mary's song of the uplifted heart sings so passionately that our hearts can uplift too, like the shared laughter. The direct experience of the divine is only available to your true nature, the soul, the heart, the spirit. There is a mystical and Gnostic understanding that is different from the way we normally operate. It's not an accumulation of facts or dogmas or history or requiring intellectual assent, but a direct overtaking, overshadowing of the Spirit of holiness. So this song teaches us something about the Gnostic approach, the wisdom understanding. It's not a treatise on humility or being faithful or being poor or a theology of God's nature or an apologetic around the mercy of God or even a revelation, as if that were needed, of human frailty. It's the response of a person who has broken through or broken up. It's an expression of wisdom, gnosis, insight, bliss. It is the heart singing from a fullness of grace. Somewhere hidden in you, the divine lives. It is the ground of your being. How to get there is the project of Gnostics and mystics, the seekers after God, the devoted. In quiet contemplation and in the wilderness of your own life, follow your heart to that breaking through. Gaudete, rejoice, you are full of grace, and with devotion you can come to know it.